He's back. Roman Reigns has returned at SummerSlam. And yes, this is our official reaction show here for SummerSlam 2024. What a show that was. A lot of interesting things took place. I'll let you guys hop on in here and we'll jump into things here shortly. If you are in the chat, make sure to leave your comments. What'd you think of the show? Did you like it? Did you get your predictions right? Because somehow, some way, guys, we managed to get all of our predictions right on this. But I think the problem is coming out of this. One of the things going to be talked about outside of the Roman Reigns return is what Keith just brought up here, because I thought as soon as Jacob Fatu hit that thing, I was concerned, and my worry is that this man is injured. So you guys are going to have to let me know if you see anything online while we're doing this show about what's going on with Jacob Fatu, because that did not look good right off the bat. Because you could tell Jacob, he was pissed. Like, you could tell on the outside. He's sitting there, and you would think he should have been in the ring for something there, because then maybe you have kind of that, some kind of showdown between Roman and Jacob Fatu, perhaps. But yes, that was not ideal. So let's all throw up the ones for Jacob Fatu, hopefully, and hope that he is okay. But it did not look good. Yeah, it could be an ankle thing, as Keith said, maybe an Achilles of some sort. Boy, hopefully not the Achilles, because that's a long deal there. If he is actually injured, hopefully it's just an ankle or something, because that will heal quicker. I am not a doctor by any means, but yeah, if was that it, I mean, you really, I couldn't tell. Like, I kind of moved on to the next thing, but you could tell he was not very happy about it. So that's all we needed, right? Roman comes back, and all of a sudden we've got a wrinkle thrown in this thing because Jacob may be injured. So we'll find out. But again, you guys let me know what you see. I'm going to pull up Twitter here while we're talking and see what I can find on this too, if there's anything that comes out. But as always, you guys let me know your thoughts. But overall, what did you think of the show? I thought this was really good stuff. We will get to each match here. I'm not going to go in order. You guys know how it works when we do these reaction shows. We try to really, just kind of bounce back and forth between your thoughts on what you saw, and I'll kind of give you my thoughts on everything that happened as we go along. So we will get to every single match. We may not go in the order that they were done in, because I know right off the bat we are going to talk about the Roman Reigns return and Cody defeating Solo Sikoa to retain the championship as expected. We all knew that was going to happen. Just a matter of how they got there. But yeah, I think the whole thing, right? We talked about all the scenarios they could play up here. And, as brought up here, like, I thought there would be a scenario where you bring Jimmy and Heyman back at the same time. But obviously they opted to go the route where this is going to be now I can tell you what we do know coming out of this. This is going to be something where now you've got a scenario where they're going to play this thing out for a while, because you didn't bring any of the key pieces back yet, right? Like, it's only August. If you're going to do the big War Games match, we got until November. So we now have time to bring back Jimmy, Heyman, Jay, and Sami somehow, some way. So I think that, that's clearly what they're going for here. They're going for the slow build. That's the way this thing has been since WrestleMania, really, other than just introducing the new members. So I think it's very clear that you want to do this. Now, here, quickly, I'm going to jump into this too. Here's a good point. This was the other thing I thought as soon as it happened, before you guys started giving me your thoughts. As soon as I saw it, I'm thinking, okay, is there a reason they're keeping Jacob Fatu out of the ring? Now, that would be something to where that makes a lot of sense. So let's just say this from the start. This is a great point here from the lounge, because if they're trying to keep Jacob Fatu out of the ring, perhaps you don't want to bring him in here for that one-on-one showdown with Roman just yet, because then what happens, right? Roman has to get the upper hand on Jacob Fatu, be able to do this, and so maybe you're holding that off. You don't want these two to interact just yet, and so maybe that's a reason to keep him out, but I don't know. Either way, it has us talking, right? Hopefully it was a fake injury. I hope he's not injured, because he's been the best part of this on that side of the bloodline for this whole deal. So I'm curious. We'll find out. Hey, maybe there's some spying going on. Maybe it's a fake injury because he's faking it on purpose, because he's spying for Roman. A lot of interesting things could play out here. But as long as this guy's not fully injured, we're okay. So, but again, you guys let me know what you think here on that. Everybody's throwing up the ones in the comments. If you're joining for the first time, again, I appreciate you guys supporting the channel, and we will get to everything here on this reaction show. We'll talk about each of the matches. But yeah, look, I'm with you, Keith. I think Jacob Fatu is either just a tremendous seller or it wasn't good. We'll find out one way or the other. But Yeah, hey, what's up, Chris? Everyone, again, leave your comments. Chris has been a regular in the live reaction shows. We haven't done these a lot right after shows because they've been kind of the international ones where they've been like during the day here in the States. And so just scheduling wise, it hasn't worked out as well. But yeah, it's fun to do these. And I thought it was a really good show, too. I thought it was a great SummerSlam. I thought a lot of the matches delivered. And we talked about right in the predictions video, we said there's going to be a lot of interference in these matches. A lot of the matches are going to have some outside elements involved. And we kind of got that in a lot of these, but I think it still worked out okay. And yeah, I think I'm loving the debate right now between the fake versus real in the comments because I hope fake wins because, again, we don't want Jacob Fatu injured based on what he's done. But we'll find out. So, yes, Walter, Roman Reigns is back. He is officially back, and he is here for the Bloodline. I think it's very obvious, kind of the tip of the hat to Cody Rhodes, and perhaps, we do get another Roman-Cody match at some point in the future, but for now, very clear that we're about to head into the next version of the Bloodline Civil War, and we're gonna find out where we go from here because, there's some one-on-one matches you could have, and that's where, again, the Jacob Fatu thing, they did do the replay, so good point here by, I think it's true. They did bring up the replay, so you never know, but they have been trying to get a little more sports-like with that. So they may show it just to show it, but we will see, as Keith says in the comment. Yeah, we'll find out. But nonetheless, what'd you guys think? What was your favorite match on the show? Give me your thoughts in the comments. I thought that overall, Punk versus McIntyre was great. I'll tell you the match that I thought really, I don't know if over-delivers is the right word, but man, Gunther and Damian Priest beat the holy hell out of each other on this show. And I thought it was tremendous. They, both of them are bleeding from the chest. And if Priest is going to go out that way as champion, I'm glad it came against Gunther because that was a match where, man, they just completely destroyed each other. And we'll talk about that one here in a little bit. But I know you guys want to talk about the Bloodline, and so we'll do that for a little bit. As always, you can leave your questions or comments there. If you leave a super chat, you can hit that little $ button down there. You can leave a cent if you want to, a single penny. That way I can see your comment a little bit. So we will have a lot of these because this is a big show. So if you want to make sure you get to your comment, leave us a nice super chat. That just supports the channel. But yeah, the original Tribal Chief. You saw the shirt, the OTC. It's everywhere, as you guys pointed out in the comments. The original Tribal Chief is officially back, and he is back for Solo and to take back the Bloodline. I think it's very obvious based on what we had here coming from this. So, yeah, we will talk about the Dominik Mysterio stuff, all that coming up here on this show. And, yeah, we kind of look, again, you never kind of know how this stuff's going to play out, but I think this was a show that felt predictable in terms of if you looked and connected the pieces together from all the stories they built to this point. It was a predictable show, but that's not a bad thing. Like, that's a good thing because everything kind of made sense when you think about whether it's the Dom stuff, whether it's Finn Balor, the Reigns stuff we knew was coming, and everything like that, right? Like, we knew these were a lot of things that you could have play out this way. And so rarely are we going to ever get our predictions right on all these matches, but this was a show that was built up for months to have a lot of these kind of final points here. And yeah, even Drew McIntyre beating Punk, that's one I went back and forth on. But when you think about it, it just made a lot more sense for Rollins to somehow sort of inadvertently be the reason that Punk doesn't win. And that's how you had it here. And so McIntyre gets the first win. They're going to go to another match we know in the future. So it all plays out pretty well here. So, yeah, I did think this was a nice touch. We will jump around a bit, but I thought Drew getting the bracelet back was pretty hilarious because that all but guaranteed that you're going to keep this thing going, as if we didn't know that already. But hey, we know that's where we're headed now because Drew took the bracelet back. And I thought it was kind of funny, too, whenever we just all of a sudden look up and Seth's got the bracelet on his wrist. Like, it all was kind of played into that. So, yeah, but anyways. All right, let's quickly run through some stuff here with the fallout from the main event, and then we will kind of hit some of the other matches one by one, and you guys can give me your thoughts on that. The Randy Orton and Kevin Owens thing, we talked about that. We weren't sure were they going to be thrown back into the mix here. Could they just have been taken out via those attacks? But then when you had Arn Anderson, all of a sudden show up on WWE television again, and you had Arn Anderson in the backs telling Cody that, he had been around some locker rooms, had some people waiting to back him up and all that, I started to think, okay, I could definitely see Arn being the person that, sort of facilitates Orton and Owens coming back to help here. And yeah, that's kind of what you got, right? But then they ultimately get taken out of the picture where, clearly they're going to be involved now, once again in this whole thing. And now we're just waiting to see when Randy Orton decides to turn on Cody. How soon does that happen? A lot of things. And remember, if you guys watch, you go back, Randy Orton is coming out in the entranceway. And do you see how he makes his entrance? Like, Orton's just kind of jogging through. He's slapping hands. He's got a huge smile on his face. That doesn't feel like Randy Orton. Like, that sort of is one of those things where it's the Viper sort of, playing a little bit something different. Yeah, the ramp was pretty long here, by the way. That's a pretty long ramp. It took Randy a while to get there. Poor Randy and Kevin Owens, who'd gotten destroyed by the Bloodline, had a long ramp to get out to the ring. But, so they brought them back, and I thought that was a little bit of a surprise. I thought maybe they'd just keep them off, but they bring them back. They didn't get to the Sami J stuff yet. Like I said earlier, they're clearly going to build that a little bit further, because that's where you can have either Roman go recruit, you have Heyman go recruit, whatever, to bring them back into the story. So I think that's where you get the tag team championships on Sami and Jay before maybe you get there now, and maybe that's the avenue that brings them back into the fold, knowing that we have tag team champions on the other side. So yeah, we'll find out. But yeah, I mean, it's a good point on Orton and Owens. I mean, it's been a while now, right? Like, I mean, in WWE land, it's been a while since they've been taken out. So it makes sense that they would come back here. And then you have to find a way to get them out of this thing. And so getting them out, they chase off, Tama Tonga Loa, and that allows Jacob Fatu to be kind of the lone presence there. And then you have Roman being the final sort of stand there to help Cody get the victory. So, I mean, what do you guys think of Roman's new theme music? That was kind of the start to that theme there. What do you think? I saw some comments already. I know some of you guys were pleased with that. But yeah, I think, I'm going to be interested to see how quickly we get to the Roman and Solo match, because, that could be one that happens soon. But you still know we're going to get to that War Games match at some point. That's in November, so that's 3 months away. So you've got bad blood between there. Nothing's going to happen as quick as Berlin, I don't think, in terms of any singles matches necessarily. But, yeah, I think that's definitely going to be something, that we see play out here. We're going to have to get to that Roman Solo match at some point now based on everything that happened here. And depending on, look, I mean, Keith's bringing it up again, like, I don't know. Like, I thought initially, my first thought was maybe they're finding a way to keep Fatu out of the ring for Roman's return because they don't want them to interact. So maybe he, it plays it up, and then he's just kind of out there as if, hey, Solo, go. Because afterwards you had Jacob Fatu telling Solo to go finish Cody and all this. So because of that, maybe it was a way to keep Jacob Fatu out of the mix. Because when they showed the replay, like, I didn't see it on the replay, but I only watched it once. So, like, I can't tell you if I could go back and watch it now 5 times, maybe I'd see something. But I don't know. But then as you brought it up, like, yeah, man, that was I don't know. It was pretty immediate. So we'll see. We'll find out. We're all hoping it's fake. That's for sure, because it's going to be interesting with that. So how often is Roman on TV now? It's a good question. I don't think he's going to be there every week. I think you guys know that. But I think you got to start building up some Roman matches. Like, he's back now. And I think this is kind of the point where you've done as much as you can with the Bloodline stuff without Roman, right? And now that he's back, he's got to be involved in this. Maybe not week to week in terms of him actually being there, but, like, he has to be somehow part of the topic, part of the subject, right? Each week. And so that's just how do they navigate that? Knowing he's probably not going to be there every single week. He's not going to be wrestling every week. We know that. He's only going to be wrestling on, the bigger PLEs, probably one singles match perhaps here soon, then the War Games match, maybe. I don't know that you're going to get Roman on every PLE or anything like that, but we don't know because, it all depends. It's kind of dependent on, again, whether this Jacob Fatu thing is actually an injury. If it's not, which I don't know. I'm kind of leaning towards right now, but we'll find out. But, yeah, he's got to have a solo match. He's got to have a War Games match, and he's got to have a Jacob Fatu match probably at some point too. So, so Roman's got some big matches in the next several months, but I don't think he's going to be a weekly presence on television. So, but I see some more guys weighing in here. The Jacob Fatu injury, part of the plan. That was my initial thoughts, but I also think there is understandable reason to think that maybe, hey, maybe there's some sort of legitimacy to it. But, hey, that's part of the fun here because that's what we're playing up. But, yeah, I think keeping him away from Roman right now makes a lot of sense. if they decide to go that route with that. So, yeah, I mean, look, some of this other stuff, someone asked about The Rock. I still think we're far away from getting The Rock back into this thing. It just seems like with The Rock, I can't imagine he wrestles any time before the Royal Rumble. I know some people have said, well, maybe he's part of that War Games match. I just don't see The Rock in the War Games match. I think there's plenty of pieces on each side to where you don't need him there. But I think after that is probably when you can start to do the big reveal that maybe The Rock is the person who is either pulling the strings on the side for Solo or has decided to step in after Solo comes up short. And that's where maybe, you eventually get Solo kicked out. Jacob Fatu is kind of clearly the most dominant force on that side. And so maybe they do something like that perhaps. But I think for now, I don't think we're going to see The Rock for a while. So that's just my prediction on that. No guarantees on that, but that's just my thoughts. So, yeah, we'll find out. But, all right. Yeah, I mean, look, everybody, this is like we are 50-50 right now when I look at you guys' comments on this Jacob Fatu thing. 50 people think it's hurt. 50 people think it's pure fake. So I don't love it if he's hurt, but I love the fact that there is maybe some kind of, there's an understandable reason on each side why we're doing this. But, yeah, I think I'm leaning more towards the fake part right now, but we'll find out. Yeah, he did hit the corner of the table, as Thomas brings up here. So I don't know. We'll discuss that if there is some news coming out of it, which I would assume surely if someone in the press conference is there, if they're doing the press conference or whatever, someone's got to ask about that, I would think, and there's got to be something on Twitter probably I can find here shortly. But you guys in the comments while I'm doing that, give me your match of the night. Which match did you All right, so I quickly, while you guys are giving me that, so I did just find this on Twitter. So there is a referee helping Jacob Fatu to the back, and you can say, well, maybe it's just fake, maybe he's doing that, but I don't know, guys. This guy is hobbling pretty bad. He's getting helped out by a referee after the show's over. Ooh, man, I tell you. Keith may have had this at the start. So, I'm just saying, the way they're doing it right now, like he's got his hands on his head, all this stuff, like, but I don't know. There's a lot of people that have a very interesting response on this. Like, even on Twitter, there are people going back and forth. You got actual doctors weighing in on Twitter from what I see here, saying that it looks like this was all done just to keep him out of the Roman picture, which, as we said, would be the thing that makes the most sense. But we will find out. Listen, if it's fake, Jacob Fatu, give him the keys to the bloodline right now. Like, why not? Anyways. All right. So, yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people were wondering if we would get Jay and Jimmy, but, as I said after we talked about it a little bit, I think clearly they're slow playing this thing. We mentioned even, back before we did the video on the booking Reigns' return and all that. I was like, do they decide to do this now where you bring Sami and Jay back in? It would make sense if Randy Orton and Owens are not there. But once you saw Orton and Owens come out, I'm thinking, all right, there's no way they're bringing Sami and Jay into this thing yet. And it's because now they can play up the fact that, it isn't going to be just as easy, I think, as getting everybody back together, right? There's going to be some convincing and some talking that has to be done between all these parties when you think about it. We're talking about Roman Reigns, Jimmy Uso, Jey Uso, Sami Zayn. Like, if those are the ones that we're all getting back together, they've all got to figure some stuff out, right? They've had some stuff happen to them in the past in their relationships. Like, they've got to figure some stuff out before it's just going to be as easy as getting them all back together. So I think that's what they're going to do over the next little while is find ways to, somebody's got to convince somebody else that this is going to work out. Sami will be there for Jay, but how does Sami and, Roman reconcile things? How does Roman and Jay reconcile things? Jimmy and Jay, like there's a lot of pieces they got to figure out before you get everybody just, ready to fight for each other in a war game setting or something like that. Right. So we'll find out. But yeah. All right. So we still have people weighing in on the Jacob Fatu thing. We will get an answer before we finish this show. We will know for sure, I think, before we finish this show, what the deal is. I will say that. I think we'll know something for sure. But yes, it would be terrible if he's hurt in some way, shape, or form. But yeah, it's we'll see. We'll hold that off. Even though we spent like 20 minutes trying to go back and forth on this, we will try to figure out what's going on with Jacob Fatu. But elsewhere, again, I think the Roman thing certainly is the biggest thing coming out of this. And yes, I agree here. I think Paul Heyman will be the one that is the voice that is going to have to get everybody back on the same page. Like, that is the chore for the wise man. And so you didn't get Heyman coming back here, but if you think about it, right, now you got all these different places where you can bring back Heyman, you can bring back Jimmy, you got a lot of other those big pops rather than doing them all at one time with Roman, which Roman was going to get the biggest one anyways. So, but yeah, we will find out. But yeah, they've got to be in spots, as Keith says, to make them. It's a necessity thing. You've got to somehow get everybody in a spot where they have no choice, right? And so we'll see. All right, the Punk McIntyre Rollins thing. I want to jump into that match quickly because I think we talked about it a little bit earlier. I thought it was kind of I thought McIntyre winning was the right choice because you think about how many times Punk has screwed over Drew McIntyre at this point, and at some point McIntyre had to get not just the revenge of beating him up in Chicago on SmackDown, but like he had to be able to get something on him here. And so even though he gets the win, everything coming out of this, you're still looking at Punk versus Rollins, knowing that you've got to get to that at some point in the future. We knew that was going to be the WrestleMania match this year, and it didn't happen because of Punk's injury. So I thought yes, there you go. CM Punk beats CM Punk. As Michael Cole said on commentary, that's exactly what happened here. Punk could not let his frustration go towards Seth Rollins. That cost him the match, which is ironic, right? Because that's what had happened with McIntyre. He could not let his frustration go with Punk, and it was ultimately what cost him, losing when Damian Priest cashed in at WrestleMania 40. So you kind of had some of that same thing play out here, kind of a similar dynamic to SummerSlam 1997, as we talked about with Shawn Michaels refereeing Bret Hart versus The Undertaker. And so, I think that was clearly something that, it just made a lot of sense, I think, to have McIntyre win this match, because if Punk wins, you have really no reason to continue this thing, because it's a lot more interesting if Punk's chasing McIntyre still versus McIntyre chasing Punk. And so you're going to have a rematch there. You're going to get Punk versus Rollins. You're probably going to get Rollins versus McIntyre again. I thought this accomplished everything it needed to accomplish, and, certainly was one of the better things of the night, I thought, just because of everything that it did achieve there. So, yes, Punk didn't get injured, we think, to this point, and that was a big thing, right? Because we mentioned, this guy's had some injury history since he's came back, and, I thought everything worked out well in their match. And so you have a lot of heat coming out of it to get to the big matches elsewhere. And so, I think, look, as you bring up here, Casey Mack, that's kind of what I said. I thought Drew needed this more than Punk did, because Punk's still Punk, and now he has a reason to get his revenge on both McIntyre and Rollins. And he will. He'll win a match. But, it's first singles match back in a long time, right? And he just came back from this injury. Meanwhile, McIntyre is, he's Drew McIntyre. And he's kind of been on a roll this year. And so this was the biggest match of Drew McIntyre's career, basically, the way they had built this up. And so he won, and we're going to get another one between these two at some point in the near future. Maybe Bad Blood, or maybe that's where we get Punk and Rollins. We'll find out. You got to do something for Berlin, too. So we'll see what all is on that card. But I really thought that was, kind of what it needed to be. Everything was accomplished that needed to be accomplished in that match, and that's what they needed, I thought, with that one. So, I mentioned earlier Priest and Gunther. We had mentioned, if you guys talk, you watched the SummerSlam predictions video we did, I said, I think this is where how they place the matches is going to be very important. Because if you do Rhea versus Liv earlier in the night and Dominik turns, then you have all the ammunition you need to have Finn Balor turn on Damian Priest, because both doing it on the same night does what? It leaves Damian Priest and Rhea Ripley with nothing after SummerSlam. They don't have their titles back, and they don't have the Judgment Day. And that, I think, is what you needed to get to here, and that's ultimately what happened. When we saw that Rhea and Liv were going to open the show, I started thinking, okay, maybe this is how it's going to actually work out, with Dominik costing Rhea, which we know did happen. Dominik and Liv now together. I think there's just a lot more excitement going forward. I think they're a better pairing right now than Dominik and Rhea. Just for my suspense each week. I want to see what's going to happen with Dominik and Liv, and now how Rhea is going to get her revenge on both of them versus the other way around. And so when we saw that earlier in the night, I'm thinking, okay, Priest is in trouble. They're going to pull this Gunther title win here. They have to do it now, and they did. And I thought it was a really good match. I mean, I thought they did. They beat the hell out of each other with the chops. You got people bleeding on their chests. Gunther just wiping the blood. This man doesn't care. And now you've got the Demon Finn. Yes, Balor has come back as the Demon without the paint on tonight. But you saw that look that Finn Balor gave Damian Priest. It's a look that's been brewing for months and months now. Like, we've talked about that. Think about all the Raw reaction videos we've done. We've talked about how the signs have been there. And there was even at one point we wondered, were we going to get to Damian Priest versus Finn Balor for the championship? But we never got there because ultimately it was going to be about Balor costing Priest the championship, because that's still the thing that has eluded Balor, right? That's the thing he wants the most. And there was nothing better for him than to take it away from Priest, because Priest, has gotten involved. We said it. I thought the breaking point would be Priest comes out after Balor's match against Gunther on Raw, and Priest still gets involved, even when Balor tells him not to, even when Balor says, you guys think I'm not good enough. And guess what? It's those two, Rhea Ripley and Damian Priest, who walk out with nothing, and you've got to think Finn Balor is the mastermind behind all of this, and I think that's the best way forward, because you get to the ultimate destinations. Priest and Rhea Ripley are the baby faces coming out of this. They're the ones that are already getting cheered. And now you have, the unlikable Dominik Mysterio. You've got Liv Morgan, Finn Balor, JD McDonough. They still have their titles. What's Carlito going to do? I'm curious to see what Carlito's role is in this whole thing. We'll find out. But, yeah, I think that Gunther being the champion is just the right call right now. I know some people were underwhelmed by Damian Priest's title run, but I also thought that he was unfairly criticized at some times, for along the way. But this was the point. Like, you could have waited 4 more weeks until they do the bash in Berlin, but this was the time. You couldn't beat Gunther here. They've done too much to build Gunther back up after that Intercontinental title loss at WrestleMania 40 to Sami Zayn. And this was the right move to give Gunther the title here, because you forward the Judgment Day storyline. Priest and Balor are now at odds. You've got to think that's a potential bad blood match right there. A lot of big bad blood matches in the works potentially. That could be a huge show based on the rivalries and betrayals that they've been building here recently. So, hey, that's a good point. I mean, you got to think, too, you can do that mixed tag team match, right? You could do perhaps Priest and Rhea against Dominik and Liv. That's certainly something that could be in the cards for them there. Hey, look, Carlito could be a fact. We could look up and maybe realize that Carlito, playing these video games every single week, somehow played a big role in this. But we'll see where Carlito stands coming out of it. But anyways, all right, guys, I'm going to, kind of look through some of your comments. We'll get to some of the other matches here. I know we've got only a few more to get to, but we will talk about a lot of stuff. Irish Sam checking in, as always. I appreciate you, Irish Sam. A regular here at Wrestling Reaction. But if you are in the chat, as I said, do me a favor. If you're joining for the first time, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. That helps out the channel. And again, if you want to leave a super chat, that'll make sure I see your comment, because we've got a lot of comments coming through and I can't catch them all. So you can leave a super chat. All that is a donation to the channel. Helps me do more videos and live streams for you guys. So I greatly appreciate your support. And yeah, I think, as we look forward here, title changes aplenty on this show, just as we sort of predicted. We knew there'd be a lot of title changes here. LA Knight defeats Logan Paul. And don't worry, if you're in the chat, we'll get back to the Roman Reigns stuff shortly. I'm just trying to give you some quick thoughts on every match so we can get back to the Roman Reigns and Bloodline stuff. But Logan Paul was not going to walk out with a championship, just as we expected. LA Knight gets the win to get his first big singles win, championship win in WWE. He needed that, and I thought that was important because, as I said, I didn't think LA Knight could lose another big match, and he didn't here. Even with all the shenanigans, the outside interference potentially, it was LA Knight getting the win just as he should have. And I think that was, something that had to be done. Like, you give him a championship and now he can kind of elevate that title because he is still so popular, right? And maybe that's what springboards him into a potential world championship opportunity a year from now or whatever it is. But we'll see what's next for Logan Paul. But yeah, he was not the hometown favorite, was he? Even though he's in his hometown, Logan Paul was not cheered like it, just as we thought. LA Knight was definitely the most popular figure there in that match. Yeah, and you can you can definitely know that Logan Paul is going to have something coming out of this. Maybe they do the rematch. I would assume they probably do a rematch between these two. But LA Knight winning was the right call, and he is now your United States champion. Quickly, Irish Sam, what's my Twitter? It's at WrestleBlake, WrestleBlake. That is what my Twitter is. I'm never on Twitter anymore. As you guys will see, I don't think I've tweeted since after WrestleMania 40. But if you guys want me to get back on there, I'll get back on there just for you, Irish Sam, and anyone else. So I do think I need to make a return to Twitter at some point. But anyways, yeah, it's not at Wrestling Reaction, Irish Sam. Sorry, it's not. I haven't changed any of that. You can find me there, but yeah, it's again, I just don't tweet very often. I don't tweet at all. I haven't tweeted in 4 months. So I'm too busy making videos for you guys. So anyways, yeah, LA Knight, megastar, now has his championship, and I think that will serve him well because he'll elevate that title. And you got some interesting potential feuds, I think, on SmackDown for LA Knight. You got to assume there's going to be something with maybe Andrade, Carmelo, who else gets involved. We'll find out on that. But all right, I will answer some of your questions here shortly. What other matches have I not mentioned? Because I just want to get these matches so we can get back to some of the other stuff. Let's see. So we didn't mention the Bayley Nia Jax thing. I told you guys that was probably the least confident pick I had was Nia Jax or Bayley. But I said I think the thing that made the most sense was to somehow get Nia Jax with the title to have Tiffany Stratton standing beside her every week. Because that is the best thing you can do, right? Because then you're just trying to figure out, all right, when is Tiffany going to cash this thing in? How long can Nia hold this thing until Tiffany does cash it in? Or maybe, it never happens. Maybe someone else comes in and wins the title from Nia Jax. A lot of people have noted that maybe that's a Charlotte Flair thing. We haven't seen Charlotte in a while. And so if she makes her return, does she win that title off of Nia Jax? And then that's how you catapult into a Tiffany Stratton Charlotte Flair match at WrestleMania 41 next year. I think that's a match that I think we talked about that after WrestleMania 40. If you're doing some wild booking a year out, that's definitely a match you could see. Tiffany Stratton versus Charlotte Flair would make sense for a lot of reasons. So I think that is definitely something where maybe they do Tiffany versus Nia and Tiffany, cashes in at some point. But I think just having the tease there, that's what you needed. More so than Bayley keeping the championship. So, I thought that match too, that was a match that may have over-delivered in some people's eyes. I thought this was a really good show from top to bottom. I can't say there was anything coming out of the show where I just looked up and said, oh, that was terrible. It wasn't. I thought everything flowed very well, and you kind of got what you expected in a lot of these matches. So, I know Nia is not everyone's favorite, but I think Nia's actually, certainly improved and been much better in this go-around in WWE than her first go-around, and putting the title on her makes a lot of sense, and having Tiffany now tease the cash in is what we're looking for. And eventually, when Tiffany does cash in, she's going to get a huge pop because if she cashes in on Nia, that is again one of those big moments you're waiting for sure. So yeah, Ronald. I mean, like I said earlier, it was predictable. There's no question. If you were looking for unpredictability, I just didn't think you weren't going to get on this show, but it was really just how they were going to do it, right? How they were going to execute some of this stuff and all that. But I thought still, even with the predictability, the right people won in my eyes because I just thought it made sense to kind of push the stories forward. So, yeah, I agree, Keith. I thought this was one of the better ones this year overall. I don't have any doubt about that. So, yeah, yeah. I mean, look, Nia may destroy Tiffany. Eventually get the cash in. It's possible. But all right, as you can see, I'm trying to catch up on some of your comments, and there's another match we didn't mention. I'm going to get to it here quickly, and then we'll get back to the Bloodline stuff. But yeah, what's up, Cole? I thought it was great. Yeah, it delivered on everything. I thought everything kind of gave us what we wanted. And, I think that's what you want out of one of these shows. It's one of the biggest shows of the year, and you got everything you kind of came for. Sure, some people may have been upset that Punk lost, or you had a couple other things like that, but Roman returns, and that was really going to be the selling point of the show. And, you've got a lot of stuff coming out of it. Huge storyline developments coming out of this thing. What happens with Judgment Day? What happens with, Priest and Rhea? Everywhere. Every match, you're coming out of it asking questions. And I like that, because I like to have the questions. We have to figure out the answers. That's the whole point. So, yeah, appreciate you jumping in, Cole. Always appreciate your thoughts. And we didn't get to Breaker and Sami. And, yeah, I mean, another one, right, where it's you felt like Breaker was going to win this match, and he did. And it was not a long match. And here's what I wrote in my notes because I had to go skim back through it. I said this was short, but it was exactly what it needed to be. There was no reason to make this an epic match, as Breaker's strength is his burst of offense and overall power. I mean, that's it, right? Like, it's, like it or not, like, it is the Goldberg formula. Like, it's okay with me with Bron Breakker, because this guy is just a complete badass. Like, I don't need him out there wrestling 25-minute matches. Although, as we've seen, he can have good matches. One of the match we had with Dragunov, whenever that was recently, was tremendous. So, but I don't need him to do that every single time. And I think this time around, having him sort of, get back what he could not do at Money in the Bank by beating Sami, it tells you that this guy has improved. He's learned from it. And he mentioned, right, we talked about it in the promos, he's been training for this match. Sami's been out doing comedy shows. Like, Breakker was the one who just managed to get it done here, and it was the right point. Because like we said, it wasn't just about Breakker winning this thing, but you had to get Sami out of the Intercontinental title picture to get him into the Bloodline picture. Like, that's what this was all about, too. You had to get that title off of him. Breakker's a great choice. And now, hey, you've got Breakker versus Dragunov at some point probably for that title. That's another match. We've already seen it. Definitely great match, great TV match. And so you're going to have that at some point. There's going to be a lot of other interesting challengers probably for Breakker. And so, yeah, I think, hey, I'm good with that one too. So you're not going to find a lot of things on this show from me where I was like, oh, that was terrible. That was all. Even the Jelly Roll chokeslam, as brought up here. I was not expecting that from Jelly Roll, who delivered a chokeslam. The man didn't even have to move. He just picked him up. Like, no movement in the legs or anything. No hip thrusts of any sort. He just used his upper body strength and picked him up and just threw him to the ground. Austin Theory. So, there you go. Hey, Irish Sam's going to Berlin. We know he was at the other show that we talked about. What was it? Which show was it, Sam? Why can't I remember that? I can't remember off the top of my head. What was the show we were talking about recently that you were at? But anyways. All right. Now that we've gotten to all the matches, again, this is not your standard reaction video. You guys know I do my weekly reaction shows where we get to kind of, the matches on the card. But here we just wanted to run through some stuff to get back to what everybody's asking about. And that is Jacob Fatu and also about the Bloodline. So I'm going to start jumping into some of your questions. So if you guys had anything earlier you sent through, if I didn't see it, then comment on it. I can't guarantee I'll get to all of it unless it's a super chat. But if you want to send it in again, do so now, because then we'll start to jump into kind of, some reaction to your questions and all that. But yes, we will everybody's, and Backlash. That's right, Sam. Sorry. I knew I saw it somewhere. But get Jelly Roll a contract as soon as possible, maybe. All right, here's the question. The nod from Roman to Cody. Could we see Cody join Roman and the Usos at the War Games match? I think if there's a 5-on-5 scenario, I think you have Roman, the Usos, Sami, and Cody. I could definitely see that. Because then on the other side, you would have Solo, Jacob Fatu, the Tongans, and then maybe that's where you bring in Hikuleo, right? Maybe that's your 5-on-5 for War Games. But I think before you get Cody, you're going to get Sami. In terms of, like, on that team, I think Sami has to be part of this, and that's just my personal opinion. Maybe it doesn't happen, but I think now we see that Sami and Jay are going to go after the tag team titles because they beat the tag team champions, 2 weeks ago. So I think that's how you're going to get both of them back into it. And the only reason Sami will return to this is because of Jay. He'll return to the Bloodline saga because of Jay. There is nothing else that will get him there. Heyman can do all the talking. Reigns can do all the talking. But we remember that moment. One of the best angles in WWE history, in my opinion. When Sami hit Roman with the chair. I think that's the only way you get Sami back into this. But I do think there is a scenario, as you're asking here, where we get Cody on that team too. It's 5-on-5. And Cody's the one that makes the most sense as the fifth member. I know some people have talked about someone else coming in, but I just think Cody is the choice there because you did get, sort of the exchange between Cody and Roman here, even though it was not an obvious one. But yeah, I think you're definitely looking at that possibility. So, yeah, Dirty Dom with the big face turn with the smooth. Hey, we knew at some point Dom was not going to be able to resist, and he decided tonight that he chose who he chose, and Dominik's going to have some consequences, I think, for that, for sure. But all right, so I know some people may be jumping in now. We did talk about Roman's return earlier, but I will kind of give some more quick thoughts here, and see. I gotta start this comment from Ronald too. I thought this is the exact same thing. We'll get to it in a second during the show, but. What about Roman's return? I thought, as we said, I mean, it was one where you had to have Roman. Commentary played it up. It kind of was Bash at the Beach, 1996-esque, where I don't remember exactly who we said that about in the predictions video. Maybe it'd been Roman, but I was like, at some point you got to be like, whose side is this person on? And when commentary started bringing up, hey, whose side is Roman on? And Graves started saying, well, of course he's out here to get Cody Rhodes. That's when you knew that Roman was, of course, coming out to take out Solo. And so I thought it was good. We talked about all the ways they could have maybe added more to this in terms of bringing Heyman out, bringing Jimmy out, Sami, Jay, if you want to get everybody together now. But you know what? Like I said a minute ago, you've got to work for that. Like, we can't just have everybody come back out unless it was just some random thing, right, that brings everyone together. But I think it makes sense why they held everything off, because they have time to build that up. They don't have to do everything in one night. So I thought Roman coming out, doing what he needed to do, and leaving, giving the nod to Cody, that tells you all you need to know. Like, that sets the stage now to where it's like, oh shit, like, it's on. Like, we know it's on. Now we find out what's next, right? Because we know Solo and company are going to be pissed, and that's where we go from here. That's the hook for SmackDown, right? To see if Roman's going to be there, what happens, when does Heyman return, when does Jimmy return, when does the original Bloodline in its old form return? Like, those are all the questions. So that's it. I thought it was well done. Everyone thought the music was great, and yeah, I thought he got kind of the pop you would expect for Roman, knowing he was coming out. That's the thing too, right? If it was some huge surprise, maybe the pop's even bigger. No one's expecting it, but everyone knew Roman was coming here. They had pointed you in every direction possible to let you know he was coming out at the end of the show, and so still a huge pop. But maybe you'd be like, hey, lessen the pop a little bit. I thought it was still pretty significant. So yeah, but there you go. Yeah, I mean, I think the crowd noise too. That's a good point. Like, everyone knew, and when the music hit, like, wait a second. Oh yeah, that is Roman. That's Roman. He's coming out. So yeah. All right, I'm going to start some of your questions here, so I'll make sure I get to them. Everybody is still asking the question about Jacob Fatu, and let me just give you an update on what I'm seeing here on Twitter. Even though, like I said, I don't get on Twitter to actually tweet, I do look for information on there. But I'm looking now, and it looks like Cody is at the press conference or whatever talking, but I'm not seeing anything on Jacob Fatu yet. I assume when Triple H gets out there for the press conference, someone is going to ask him about Jacob Fatu. So, yeah, like, look, there's a lot of people on Twitter that think that this thing is 100% real. So I will find out. If you guys are watching this on the replay, you're probably thinking, man, I know by now what's happening, but we have to talk about it because it's a live show. So anyways, all right. Let me get to this one from Ronald earlier. I know I brought up something there, and Zoa, you had another one earlier too. I'm going to get back to, but the first time in history where a wrestler looked at the video replay to find out what happened. That was like, as I'm seeing Priest looking up, I'm like, wow, when have we seen that before? But it may, like, at one point, like, every wrestler should learn. If you have something crazy that happens in a match, go over to the announce table and just go to the monitor as you feel like maybe they're showing a replay, and just pick up one of those monitors, give it a look, and be like, all right, maybe they're about to show the replay. I'm just going to stand here until I see what actually happened. But Priest looks up, and he sees exactly what happened with Balor, and that's an interesting touch, right? It's there, use it. And it also is like, don't insult my intelligence by acting like Priest can't see this gigantic-ass screen up there in this stadium. So I thought that it was interesting. My first thought, too, I was like, when's the last time we saw somebody look up and be like, oh, yeah, that guy just screwed me over? Maybe if Priest never looked, then, been all right. So maybe he'd still have his championship if he never looked at that huge screen in the stadium. So, anyways. All right. Let's get to some other stuff. But, yeah, Roman would come out and spear everybody. Yeah, I mean, there was a thought, too, Chris, that maybe Roman comes out and takes out Cody as well. And somebody's got to get up and win the match. But, no, they're clearly all in. So they're all in on Roman, full babyface, and he's back and ready to take on the Bloodline, I think, for sure. So shout out to Michael here. I appreciate it, Michael. $4.99 on the Super Chat. Again, guys, if you want to leave a Super Chat, I will 100% get to your comment if you leave a Super Chat. And so, yeah, Cody versus Orton at Survivor Series. You can certainly see that. So if you keep Cody out of the War Games match, that's something where you could do that match there. I know some people are saying, well, you get to Cody and Orton and Bad Blood. I mean, let's think about it, right? Like, Bad Blood is, 2 months away? It's October 4th, I think it is. So I don't know if you get to Cody and Orton that quickly, because that's where, like, if you'd have kept Orton out of tonight, then I could have said, all right, Orton's just going to come out of nowhere and strike at some point soon. But the fact that Orton did come back tonight, although I did tell you guys, when you see Orton coming out, like, he's doing the handshakes, the over-the-top, like, babyface type stuff, coming down the ramp, kind of taking his time a little bit. But then he did come out and try to fight off, the Tongans, although, again, I don't know how that leads to what happens with Cody, but we know the teases have been there. So, yes, they could hold off Cody and Orton to Survivor Series, or maybe they do something at Bad Blood where Orton turns there or has already turned. They do the match, but I think Survivor Series would make a lot of sense because, Triple H, I think, likes to keep some of those bigger matches too for, the bigger shows, like the traditional big, big four, right? So I wouldn't be surprised if they do that. You have War Games, Cody Orton, and we'll see. You guys know after WrestleMania 40, I did my long-term WrestleMania 41 predictions. I said I'm gonna go Cody versus Orton at WrestleMania 41. I think it's probably too long away now. I don't think they're waiting that long for Cody and Orton. Although they could do a rematch, I suppose, but I don't think they're waiting that long for that. All right, so let's get to some other stuff here. I appreciate that, Michael. Again, the $4.99 super chat that donates to the channel. I greatly appreciate it. And again, guys, if you're just joining, do me a favor, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button too. If you've not watched the channel before, check out all the stuff we did. Somehow we got our SummerSlam predictions right. But as everybody said, it's a pretty predictable show, but nonetheless. So Connor asked this question. I will tell you, Connor, the first thing I thought of when Drew McIntyre put that bracelet back on after the match, I said, all right, AJ Lee's not back yet, but this is a way to somehow get closer to AJ coming back, perhaps. Because we know they're extending this thing, and the fact that Drew still has that bracelet now afterwards, that was a nice touch, because it does kind of keep you wondering if AJ is going to ever return. And, there's been interviews and stuff with Punk talking about how she's busy and everything, but, maybe he's trying to get her back, come back and all this other stuff. But I think having the bracelet still tied into this thing could some way get AJ back, but it's just a question of how they do it. I think there's still the potential. It's not happened yet, but I do think just keeping this bracelet in circulation here, McIntyre still has it. Maybe that's a way to make it happen. So we'll see, but that's a good question for sure, because I'm curious as well if that's something that keeps this loop going with AJ, perhaps. But all right, Corey, do you think WWE brought back Roman too soon? I was thinking they should have built the Bloodline 2.0 up more. I could have understood waiting a little bit longer, maybe, but I think at a certain point, you guys know this, you probably, we necessarily bring it up, but it did get a little repetitive when you think about how the Bloodline has done over the past, month now, where they're just beating people up, put them through the table, on to the next week, right? So I think you really needed now, I don't know that Solo was ever going to get to the level that he was never going to get to Roman's level, right? You could have done this for 6 more months, and it still would not have happened. So I think this is probably the time, knowing, like I said, you know that they want to do the War Games match with the Bloodline, and that's 3 months away, but that's not that far when you think about it, right? So I think this was the time to bring Roman back because it also connects to Cody, and I think that's what you wanted to do here. If you were going to do this big match with Cody and Solo, do it now. Like, get Roman back where he has the history with Cody. Now we've seen what Solo's done to his bloodline, and now's the time to do it. But I think the only other way you could have built the Bloodline 2.0 up more is, simply by maybe adding a Hikuleo to the mix. They just won the tag team championship. Solo wasn't ever going to win the title from Cody. I mean, so I don't know, I guess, what else they could have done other than just, having them establish themselves more. But I think you have to remember this too. By having Roman back, they can now build themselves up more because they now have a Roman Reigns to play off of versus nothing against Randy Orton, nothing against Kevin Owens, nothing against Cody Rhodes, right? But this is the family stuff. This is Roman Reigns. So I think having Roman back actually does help them and builds them up even more because you need him there. Even if, we can also be like, Roman's probably going to go through and mow through quite a few of these guys, maybe in singles matches. So it's an interesting question, but I think now you just had to do it. You had to do it now. And I think that's probably what they had to go with. So, all right, I'm going to try to go through some of these other questions and comments. Again, I always appreciate you guys asking. Rebecca asked here, when's Roman coming back to SmackDown? You would think Roman has to be on SmackDown on Friday. Coming out of this, I don't know why they wouldn't put him on SmackDown. I've surely, because everybody's going to be tuning in for that reason, right? They've got to tune in to see what is Roman Reigns going to do, what is Solo going to do. Yeah, so I would have to think. I'm not Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns is a travel agent here, but I would have to think he's showing up on SmackDown on Friday in some way. So, yeah, Rodney, I called every match right. Listen, I appreciate that, Rodney, but if you guys go back to my Money in the Bank predictions, they were terrible. But this show, yeah, it was one where I thought the title, you had to have a lot of title changes here based on the stories they were telling. And trust me, there will not be another PLE WWE has, probably where I get all the matches right. But that was okay. We felt like this was a predictable show, but I still enjoyed it anyways. I still thought it was one, as people said earlier, that's one of the better PLEs of the year for WWE. So, yeah, did Drew, I have to go back and watch on the replay. Did Drew kiss AJ's name on the bracelet? If he did that, she's got to come back. There's no other question. I don't think she's coming back for a singles match with Drew McIntyre, but she's got to make an appearance somewhere. Yeah, hey, I mean, look, it's interesting, right? AJ back, her and Punk against Rollins and Becky. That could be something that could be interesting too, huh? Brings Becky back, brings AJ back, get a little mixed tag. You got to think some mixed tags are coming back. They're coming back in WWE. Maybe Netflix is where we really start getting the mixed tag team matches. We've already gotten some of them, I feel like. But, yeah, I mean, you see all the pairings that are out there now, so that could happen. But, yeah, good point here, Keith. I think I'm going to get to this next comment in a second. Build suspense to a certain point for a big pop, but if you hold out too long, you lose the fans. Yeah, exactly. And I think that's where the chance, too, we didn't even bring that up a few minutes ago, but all the We Want Roman chants. And you had so many people going into that show tonight convinced, almost guaranteeing themselves they were going to see Roman Reigns. And if he didn't come back at the end of that show, that would not have been good. Because it had all been built to that. Solo bringing up Roman more and more in recent weeks, telling Roman he knew where to find him, all this other stuff, and then you've got Roman coming back for the original Tribal Chief stuff and all that. I love how WWE has no shame anymore when it comes to a guy comes back out of nowhere and he's already got the merch on, right? No shame. We're plugging that stuff as soon as the music hits. John Cena comes back before he even announces he's on his retirement tour. He's got the shirt on that says the last time is now. He's already telling you that this retirement tour is coming. He hasn't even announced it yet. Roman Reigns comes out with the OTC shirt on. He's already telling you where we're headed. It's the original Tribal Chief against, the wannabe Tribal Chief in Solo. So, WWE selling that merch in the TKO era for sure. So, all right. So, I have had a couple people. I'm glad you brought this up. I have had a couple people, I know, comments before. I've gotten emails about this. I do not work for WWE. Okay. I know I only cover WWE and I'm focused on the stories and maybe I get a few right here or there, but I promise I don't work for WWE. If you would like to put in a kind word for me to work for WWE, I don't mind that, but for right now, I work for you guys. I'm working for you here at the Wrestling Reaction YouTube channel. So, not working for WWE. If you want to put in a kind word, please let Mr. Triple H know that I'm available for meetings. But I'm not one of the story writers. I love the storyline stuff, though. I will tell you that. Above all else, some people love wrestling for the matches. And not that I love the matches, but I've always been a big storyline guy. Just love the storylines. Love picking apart the storylines, guessing where they're going to go next. I love that, man. It's just that's the natural writer/creative person in me. I love that part of this thing. So, always been, drawn to the characters and just the common wrestling stuff. When it comes to how do you get heat? How do you do all this other stuff? The old school wrestling type ways. And I know this is more we're an Attitude Era 2.0 here, but still, this is just the way I've always enjoyed it. So, no, I don't secretly work for WWE, but if you guys want me to work for WWE, give me a hell yeah in the comments. But, no, just kidding. So, all right, so let me pull up this real quick. So, Keith just said, Cody said in the post-show that Roman will be there Friday to address things. Yeah, you would think Roman has to be on SmackDown on Friday. I can't imagine they would keep them off that show based on how big this return is. And when do you think WWE goes back to TV 14? I think the Netflix thing, and we'll do probably a video on it as we get closer, but I think the the Netflix thing is going to change a lot. And as Triple H has said, they've already started doing some of this stuff. Like, they've already started leaning into, the Dom and Liv stuff. They started leaning into a lot of these other kind of things. So I think Netflix is going to be a new game here. I think you're going to see some new stuff from WWE that will feel more like the Attitude Era, probably. But again, I think they've already started moving towards some of that, just not as perhaps wild as it was then. I think that's it. But all right, so Sam, are you going to bed yet? It's 5 o'clock your time. It's got to be 5 o'clock there in the morning. So I appreciate your remarks as always. Our tribal chief of predictions, 5 a.m. Okay, so you even said it in the comment. I didn't look far enough, but yes, I'm your tribal chief of wrestling predictions here. Shout out, yeah. So do I think The Rock plays a part in the whole Bloodline story? Yes, I think The Rock is eventually revealed as the mastermind. Either that, I don't know if you can even say he's the mastermind, but I think he's clearly going to lead the other side from Roman Reigns. I think we know that, and I think that's where you have a couple options. Either Rock's been, kind of doing this with Solo from the start, which you guys know. If you go back and check out the videos I did that one big video on all the little things that had built up to where it told you that Solo was moving more towards the Rock side than Roman's side. You had, physically standing closer to the Rock, where he was, the month prior, he was standing beside Roman. A lot of little things they dropped in there. Solo's going to be, joined with The Rock, but I think that's where, like I said, I'm intrigued to see if that's where they maybe overthrow Solo at some point, because he can't get the job done. And then that becomes Jacob Fatu's kind of, main deal, where he is kind of the muscle and the enforcer for The Rock versus Solo. So, yeah, we'll see. But, yeah, I'm with you, Ronald. I think Drew and Punk, you got to go Hell in a Cell there. I mean, you even got the options to go Hell in a Cell with Punk and Rollins, I'm sure. But you probably still want to have just a normal match between those two at one point. But I could definitely say you could probably, right now, like if we're making a Bad Blood, match card, which remember, we still got Berlin and all that. But if we're making a Bad Blood match card, you've got to think Punk versus McIntyre, Hell in a Cell potentially is on that card. Rhea Liv again, perhaps. Priest Balor. I mean, I don't know. Do you do Roman and Solo there? Perhaps. We'll see. So I think there's a lot of interesting ones. So what's up, Justin? Yeah, one of your favorite pay-per-views in a while. Yeah, I think that was kind of consensus in the comments. A lot of people thought it was a very, very good show from top to bottom. One of the best shows of the year from WWE. And yeah, like we've all kind of talked about, there just wasn't anything bad on the show. Like usually you may have something you look up and like, oh, that was terrible, but I mean, even if you're like, hey, the Miz and Truth thing was like, the let up before the main event or whatever. No, you got the Jelly Roll chokeslam out of it. So you even got the payoff there for that. So, yeah, it was good stuff. So Irish Sam weighing in with the hell yeah. Before he heads to sleep. Nia Jax going to join the Bloodline? No, I don't think that's going to happen. I understand why we could connect it, but I just don't think that does anything for either party in terms of what they've actually done to this point. Unless you want to say Naomi somehow aligns with Jimmy on the other side and Nia joins and somehow you get to that perhaps, but I don't know. But yeah, I'm with you, Corey. I bet people can weigh in for anyone that was at the show. Usually we have some people check in from the show on these, but I would assume the OTC shirts were already there. So probably buying those things like crazy. So yeah, those will sell. What do you think of the shirt too? The OTC. Like I'd have to go back and look at it. I just kind of vaguely remember what it looked like. But all right. Yeah. So let's look at some other stuff here. Yeah. So like there are other members that are out there that could join this thing. People talked about Zilla and all those guys. I don't know. Like I tend to think Triple H is good with kind of what they have right now, other than we know Hikuleo is there from New Japan. And, I mentioned like the Talatonga trademark and all that. They're going to bring him in at some point. If they want to do the 5-on-5 War Games, I think that's where they bring him in before that. But, also remember how long we waited for Jacob Fatu to make his debut. So they could wait a little while on that for sure. So here's an interesting one. We talked about John Cena's final opponent, or perhaps, final WrestleMania opponent. And, yeah, I mean, hey, Cena versus Cody at WrestleMania 41. I've seen a lot of people bring that one up. We brought it up as one of the maybe top 5 options you have on the board for Cena's, final WrestleMania-type match or final match period. Doing it with Cody, that would be interesting, just given, kind of that, what it means for both parties, perhaps, I think is definitely something that could be interesting. OTC, Original Tribal Chief. So, It kind of sounds like something they would sell you on. I don't know. I don't know. It sounds like one of those. I don't even know. Like it's interesting. Like, but I think it's easier to say than original tribal chief, right? Like WWE loves to let's shorten things as much as we can. Like this is the company. Remember too that we've gotten rid of people's last names and first names because it's just like, hey, simpler the better. So OTC is much easier to say than original tribal chief. So I think that's why they're going with that. So, okay. So I think you may have asked the question earlier. I think I actually started. Yeah, you did ask the question earlier. 2-night event for SummerSlam will be crucial or beneficial. I know this is not the one I have on the screen, but I just remembered it from earlier. Yeah, I think that's the thing. And look, here's what's going to happen, right? With where we are now in the TKO era and all that, like it is money, 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 money. Like we're going for the biggest money, the biggest audiences we can get, all that. I mean, eventually I'm like, I would think that the Royal Rumble is going to be 2 nights. That's the one I thought they would actually do for 2 nights before they got to SummerSlam. Because, I mean, if you think about it, right? You do the men's Rumble on one night, you do the women's Rumble on the other night, sold. Like, that's it. But SummerSlam being 2 nights, that's where, if you did that, right? I mean, I'm not saying anything's wrong with this, but you would have had what? If, let's say we would have added to tonight's card, make it 2 nights, you would have added the 2 tag team championship matches that took place on SmackDown. You would have actually got a finish, probably, on Bianca and Jade against Alba Fire and Isla Dawn. You would have probably got Andrade and Carmelo Hayes in another match there. You would have gotten the Wyatt Six stuff and Chad Gable. So, like, all that stuff you would have probably added to this card. And I'm like, it's okay for that stuff just to be on Raw or SmackDown. I don't need all that stuff on this card to make it 2 nights. And so that's where, again, though, you'd have to build up a lot more stuff to make those matches feel PLE worthy and not just kind of your basic undercard matches that are there for no reason. Like every match on this show felt important. It all had a reason, and that's why I think it was such a good show, because everything felt like it was there for a reason. It had a purpose. It evolved some storylines that are, big, and yeah, I think that's the way to do it. And we know Triple H is like this 5-7 sort of formula. So, but the 2-night SummerSlam will make that a little trickier, so we'll see what happens there. But, hey, Chris says they don't need to add the whole family tree to the bloodline, but I'm wondering if, that's their goal. But we're going to still be talking about the bloodline 30 years from now. And we've got 140 members on each side. Perhaps, right? Perhaps that's what they're going for. Then if you get a bloodline rules match in the year 2054, that thing may last 4.5 hours, because then you got so many you got 70 interferences going on there coming in. But do I think John Cena will break the record for the most championships? Oh, boy. I think there's a possibility, but I also think Triple H is a Ric Flair guy, and not that he's not a John Cena guy, but he's a Ric Flair guy. And for Flair to hold that record, I don't know. But, I mean, I don't know. Like, that's a good question. So we'll see. But, The Rock may be the original, maybe the OTC. We're introducing OTC now. I have to get used to it. But yeah, I think The Rock may be there. But is Roman Reigns a face now? He's definitely a face. Like he's full on, not the Cody Rhodes level baby face, but he's almost there now. Like he is officially putting himself against the bloodline, the new version. And so Roman is here to slay the beast that is Solo and Jacob and all those guys. So yeah, I think Roman is definitely the face, and my guess is if you're talking about next matches for Roman, they've all got to be bloodline related. They've all got to be Solo, Fatu, War Games, Rock. Like those are the matches for Roman. I just can't see him doing any matches outside of that, unless they decide to do Roman and Cody again, which I don't think you need to do. I don't think there's any reason for it. Other than to say, well, Roman wants his championship back, but I think we're past that at this point. He's got other things to deal with. Roman doesn't need the championship back because he's not going to have another 4-year reign or whatever. So doesn't need to happen. Yeah, there you go. So it's a good one. Yep. As Malik says here, Roman returning and helping Solo is what will cause a rift between Roman and The Rock. So there's a good point. Like, yeah, this is where you can bring The Rock back into this at some point, in the future, and this is one of the reasons. And I think that's where The Rock's had it at this point. So yeah, that doesn't want that. So, all right. So Keith has an update here. Triple H said that Jacob was injured, but they don't know how bad yet. Okay, so there's your update on Jacob Fatu. So we went back and forth for a while. Yeah, I mean, I think, as we said, we were split 50-50. Keith called it from the beginning. And I just thought the way he reacted initially, it just was not what they needed. But I'm also looking at the wording here, Keith, and Triple H said that Jacob Fatu was a little banged up. Now, to me, a little banged up does not sound like a serious injury, and hopefully that's the case, because a little banged up may just be, all right, he hit that thing hard on the announce table, and maybe he, I don't know, shattered something, right? Maybe, hopefully not. That wouldn't be good. But I don't know. Like, a little banged up to me is not like full on, hey, this guy's out for 6 months. But he also, as you said, didn't know how serious it was yet. So, oh man, I don't like that at all, guys. I'm just going to be honest with you. Like, if Jacob Fatu is taken out of this, I don't know where we go next, because he has kind of been, the one that's been carrying that side of things. Not to knock Solo, but Jacob Fatu's presence, we've talked about it. It's just so different than everything else. And if he's not part of this, oh man, that's brutal. That is absolutely brutal. So we'll see. Hopefully it's not too bad. But I mean, again, but think about the role he's playing, right? Like, even if it's something that keeps him out, it's not like he can get in there and just half-ass things. He's got to get in there and be Jacob Fatu. So that's brutal. That's brutal. So anyways, yeah, I appreciate the update, Keith. Yeah, I'm not watching the press conference. I'll go back and watch it when we finish up here. But yeah, that's brutal for Jacob Fatu if he's out for an extended period of time, even for a short amount of time, right? Because we know, I mean, again, you've got to think that that's going to play into this thing somehow. So how long will Gunther be the world champion? That's a great question. I think my question now is, who's next for Gunther? Because, you could certainly have the rematch with Priest, I think, just given the fact that Balor played a role and you had that. So Priest could get his rematch, perhaps. But you could also do Gunther and Balor in Berlin, perhaps. Although I don't know how they get to that, because, again, the immediate thing is going to be Gunther and Priest, or Priest and Balor. But I think, remember, the choke out from Gunther on Balor on this week's Raw, maybe that's where they do it. Balor wants that championship. Maybe that's where it happened. So we'll see. But yeah, we'll find out with that. Do I think we get Rock versus Roman at WrestleMania 41? I've said before, I would rather see The Rock versus Roman now than I would The Rock versus Cody. But I think I may be in the minority on that. But I think it's all part of the bloodline thing. I don't think you can extend Rock and Roman another year, because they want to do that match. They want to do it this year, right? They had made a whole documentary about it. They wanted to do Rock and Roman this year. They didn't do it because they pivoted to Cody. But I don't think you want to wait another year, because remember, as I've said, what happens then? You've got to do Rock and Roman at some point. Like, we've been talking about that for years and years now. I don't know that you ever have to do Rock and Cody, but they did build it up to where that was the last thing you left with. Even the documentary, at the end of the documentary, it's all about Rock and Cody. So maybe that's still the direction they go. But, I mean, if they do that, to me, I'm like, that gives Roman only one match at next year's WrestleMania. And, like, that's either Solo or Jacob Fatu. Like, I don't know how I don't think you want to take Roman outside of the Bloodline universe. Like, I think he needs to just stay in there and be involved in that. And that's what he does, until he officially retires. So, I don't know. I mean, I just think that's where we're at. So, but, yeah, I think, but yeah, I mean, the double agent perhaps, but yeah, I mean, they could also, relinquish the titles. If Jacob Fatu's injured, I didn't even bring that up, right? Great point. Like, I forgot. They just won the tag team championship, so you got to take those things there. But I think Gunther, I didn't actually answer the question last, but I think Gunther will be a champion for a while. I mean, remember, Triple H likes the long title reigns for the heels. The heels, not necessarily the baby faces sometimes, but because you always, that's the thing, right? The baby faces are better when they're chasing. The heels can have these dominant runs. So I think Gunther's going to be the champion, I mean, through at least probably, I think probably the earliest Gunther could lose that thing would be WrestleMania next year, maybe. So I think you're looking at a pretty lengthy title run for Gunther here. Maybe it's earlier than that. We don't know the list of challengers, but we know on Raw, that's the thing, right? Look how many potential challengers there are on Raw. McIntyre, Punk, Rollins. I'm not going to say everybody. Jay's there, right? Like, Sami could have another match at some point with Gunther, given the history there. So there's plenty for Gunther to do on Raw, and plenty of big programs, I think, for him to work through. So, yeah, we'll see. We'll see how we get to that. So, all right, yeah, Balor, I could see it. I could see Gunther and Balor, because that's the difference in Gunther challenging for the championship in Berlin versus defending it. Balor is someone now who there's reasons to not like him based on what he did to Priest, and there is the history from last Monday or this past Monday's Raw where Gunther choked out Balor after the match. So some of that, even though Balor helped Gunther win the championship, maybe he helped it because he wants to win it himself. So maybe that's the way they do it, but we'll see. But yeah, there you go. Good point here, guys. Yeah, you're bringing it up. Like, could be triple threat. Could very well be a triple threat. You do something like that, maybe. But yeah, I think Priest and Balor, I would, if I had to do a bad blood match card prediction right now, as I said, I'd put Priest and Balor on that card. I think that's going to happen. So, yeah. Rock, yeah, I think Rock needs to have the big matches now. I don't think you want to be, planning Rock matches out for the next 2 or 3 years. I think he needs the big matches now. And if they never get to Rock and Roman, I just feel like we didn't want them to do it this year, and understandably so. But I feel like this next year is actually where you get to it. And again, I'd be perfectly fine with like Cody and Orton or Cody and Cena or someone like, I don't have to see Cody and Rock. Like, I know that was the big thing coming out of last year's WrestleMania, but I feel like we've evolved beyond that now, to where if Rock comes back, he's part of this bloodline thing. I just think Rock and Roman makes much more sense to do, but we'll see. Yeah, great point here too. You can do Rock and Cody at the Rumble. You don't have to do it at WrestleMania, and so maybe do that at the Rumble. Roman Rock set for WrestleMania 41. Everyone's happy. I think that's a great point there, G Swole. So, yep. All right, guys, we've gone over an hour. We did, again, if you're just joining in now, we did most of our reaction to the actual show. We went through all the matches, gave some quick thoughts. You guys know I'll be doing additional videos looking at the fallout of SummerSlam as well, but this is kind of our live reaction show where you guys get involved. You share your comments and thoughts on what happened, and I appreciate the super chats that have come in too. If you want to leave one of those on your way out, never going to turn those down. Helps the channel, and again, be sure to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. You guys, I appreciate that as always. Yeah, hard to believe, guys. We're almost at 10,000 subscribers. Nuts. Like, I don't even know what to say. Like, we had like 70-something subscribers before like middle of February, before we got into like WrestleMania season mode. And then you guys have just hopped on from there. It's been pretty awesome. So I appreciate you guys, as always. But, all right, so I'm going to quickly run through a couple more of these. Yeah, I don't think the tap out, the choke type thing is for everybody, especially when you have like a match like this on a big card. But you can see why they did it. Like, because again, it was kind of the irony of the same thing kind of happened to Balor on Monday, and Priest falls victim to it here. And yeah, like I sort of thought that was the way they were going to play it, because that's kind of what they've been using with Gunther. I prefer the pins, just like I think most people do, but they do lean into the realism, right? And Gunther is just he's a different beast. And the fact that he's just going out and choking people out, that tells you he's not looking for 1, 2, 3. He's looking to take people out, for good here. And so, yeah, I can understand, though, why some people would not be a fan of that. Robert, just checking in. Yeah, I thought it was a great show. I thought it was one of the best PLEs of the year for WWE. Maybe not from the Jacob Fatu entry coming out of it. Apparently, Logan Paul, I think I also saw Triple H mention he was a little banged up, too. Which I think Logan Paul's would have been on the one. I don't know if you guys remember. He did he did the moonsault to the outside or something. And the way he landed on I thought he'd snapped his leg. But I think LA Knight immediately kind of instinctually just sort of jumped over towards him after the move. But I guess he was okay because he finished the match. But yeah, that was another one where there was a couple spots in there for Logan Paul. I thought that he did not look great coming out of some of them. It felt like he hit pretty hard in a couple moves there. So, yeah, but that's, yeah, we'll see what comes out of that. But yes, I thought it was a great show, Robert. I thought it was really good stuff. And again, I would highly encourage you to go back and check out our thoughts here earlier on this reaction show, which you guys can obviously watch as soon as we wrap up here. But yes, Connor, I think we're seeing the Demon. I think the Demon's back. I think we'll see that. I think we'll see it for the match against Priest. I think you have the Demon, Finn Balor versus Damian Priest, maybe at Bad Blood. I think that's a perfect setting for something like that to bring back the Demon. So, hey, Chris, you're going to Raw in Austin, August 12th. Good. Let me know your thoughts there. Give us some live reactions in the comments. We'll do a reaction show for that, and yeah, you'll have some pretty good stuff, because that'll be full-on build towards Bash in Berlin at that point, because that's 4 weeks away now. So yeah, let me know how that goes. Always fun to do these shows like live, right? Like it's a lot more exciting now watching WWE on television than it has been in recent years with the previous regime. But live shows, man, they're always exciting. I think you always get that extra something with a live show, so should be fun. But all right. Zoe, about to top out. I just want to acknowledge this. Hey, I appreciate I appreciate the kind words. I really do. He's gonna email Triple H on the way out. All right, send it may be paul.levesque@wwe.com. I don't know if that's his email address, but give it a shot. Let's just find out. But yeah, let him know that I'm available for hire. If you need some services, let him know. By the way, speaking of that, it's funny because I'm actually reading Brian Gewirtz's book right now. Of course, Brian Gewirtz is the former WWE head writer who has been, he works with The Rock. He's been working with The Rock for 20 plus years now. And he was brought back during WrestleMania 40. We talked about him. And I'm actually reading his book, and it's so interesting to kind of read like the perspective from the writer in WWE and everything during that period when he came in, which is Attitude Era, into Ruthless Aggression, all that. But it's a very fascinating book. So I would highly recommend it. I'm a big reader. I don't know if you guys know that. I haven't done any like book reviews or anything here on the channel, but I love all these wrestling books. Like I love the knowledge. So yeah, it's an interesting book. But why did Roman not take the necklace back from Solo? I think we'll get to that, right? Like I think that's what we're building towards. I think it's coming. Like he's going to get that thing back. And I don't think it'll be on SmackDown on Friday. Maybe it is on SmackDown, but we're definitely doing the Battle of the Tribal Chiefs, right? And here's what we're going to get. We're going to get the original Tribal Chief, the OTC, versus whatever they're labeling Solo as. The new Tribal Chief, maybe. The NTC, I don't know. And then you're going to get the final boss versus the Tribal Chief. You're going to get The Rock versus Roman. So WWE's got all the marketing stuff they need for these things. So, yeah, it should be fun. So, all right, guys, I'm going to wrap up since we've gone about hour 15 here. And, again, I always appreciate the interactions. I forgot how long it's been since we've done one of these live shows. We'll start to do these more often because I always forget how fun they are to do it. But, yeah, we will do this because it's a lot more exciting than just you guys, commenting after I pre-record a video. So we might try to do some live reaction shows after some of the weekly TV shows like we did at one point. But we'll see. Who do I think quickly on the way out? Shocking return of the 2025 Royal Rumble. Hulk Hogan. I don't know that the Hulkster can get in there right now and take a bump out. If he's in the Royal Rumble in 2025, he's got to win the thing. But I don't think that's going to happen because I don't think Hulk's taking any bumps over the top right now. So, shocking return, 2025 Royal Rumble. Give me AJ Lee. AJ Lee, just like I said, it was going to happen in 2024. I'll keep doing it every year, until we actually get it. So, she might be back before that, though, given all the necklace discussion that we've had. So, we'll find out. But, all right, guys, seriously, thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed SummerSlam. Sounds like a lot of you did. We will find out what happens with Jacob Fatu. I'll do a video as soon as we know what the extent of Jacob Fatu's injury is. But, yeah, we'll talk about that and plenty of more stuff coming out of it. I'll make some separate videos for you guys in the fallout from SummerSlam. Glad you enjoyed the show. And as always, on the way out, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. That helps the channel. Be sure to check out everything else we've done here and turn on those notifications. That always helps you when we get these videos going up. And again, also, if you want to check out the podcast, if you want to just watch on video, you can also listen to the podcast. Any podcast app you use, search for Wrestling Reaction. You'll find me there, whether it's Spotify, Apple, anything like that. If you want to listen to this stuff as well, you can. So, yeah, definitely check that out. A lot of different places. And I said, I am on Twitter. If you want to follow me on Twitter, I'm not on there right now. I may decide to get back on there, but it is at Wrestle, WRESTLE, Blake, BLAKE. So if you want to find me there, you can. But seriously, guys, appreciate you as always. And again, let me know your thoughts after you kind of maybe go back and watch some of this stuff from SummerSlam. What do you think coming out of this? And yes, don't forget, do your man a favor. Email Triple H. I'm just kidding. You don't have to do that. Seriously, guys. Appreciate it. As always, thanks for watching. Talk to you again here soon at Wrestling Reaction.